Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 10, verse number 7. Etam vibhitim yogam cha mam yo veti tattvata so avikalpena yogena yunjitena atra samshaya. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation: one who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mind engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this there is no doubt. Purport: the highest summit of spiritual perfection is knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unless one is firmly convinced of the different opulences of the Supreme Lord, he cannot engage in devotional service. Generally, people know that God is great, but they do not know in detail how God is great. Here are the details. If one knows factually how God is great, then naturally he becomes a surrendered soul and engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord. When one factually knows the opulences of the Supreme, there is no alternative but to surrender to Him. This factual knowledge can be known from the descriptions in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and similar literatures. In the administration of this universe, there are many demigods distributed throughout the planetary system, and the chief of them are Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the four great Kumaras and the other patriarchs. There are many forefathers of the population of the universe. All of them are born of Supreme Lord, Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the original forefather of all forefathers. These are some of the opulences of the Supreme Lord. When one is firmly convinced of them, he accepts Krishna with great faith and without any doubt, and he engages in devotional service. All this particular knowledge is required in order to increase one's interest in the loving devotional service of the Lord. One should not neglect to understand fully how great Krishna is, for by knowing the greatness of Krishna, one will be able to be fixed in sincere devotional service. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine. Hare Krishna. So today we are discussing on Bhagavad Gita chapter 10 text 7. One who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mind engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of there is no doubt. If we understand from the purport, Prabhupada mentions this particular knowledge is required to increase one's interest in loving devotional service of the Lord. So we understand here the chapter is titled as the opulence of the Absolute, in which Krishna's opulence, his energies, his greatness is described. And we understand that one should not neglect to hear about these, because what happens when someone hears about Krishna's opulences, he becomes devoted to Krishna. So if we see, there is so much of vast Vedic literature, even in devotional service we have so many other in devotional texts, so many things to read, so many things to understand. But one must not neglect to understand how great Krishna is, because if one understands the greatness of Krishna, then naturally a soul it surrenders to Krishna. So that's why in Prabhupada books, when we read Prabhupada books, be it small book, medium, or other big texts like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, in the purpose we find Prabhupada is stressing same things over and over again. Just like we are not these bodies, we are soul, and Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, soul is eternal servant of Krishna, and by chanting Hare Krishna, we'll be able to go back to Krishna to serve him. So Prabhupada is repeatedly stating these four points throughout his books, in purports, in various of his commentaries. And we can understand these books, they make devotees. So we have to understand why Prabhupada is focusing on these points, and how these four things helps one to surrender and develop this dormant Krishna consciousness. If we see, we are not this body, we are soul. Just by understanding this, one may not come to the point of serving Krishna, because there is negation of identity, material identity, but there is no spiritual identity, who we are actually. If we are not these bodies, then who are we? There is no information given in this. We are just not this matter. So this will not help us to become devotees, because we can see from practical examples, there are people even in Vedic culture, just like impersonalists. They know that they are not this body, they are soul, but they are not devotees. And similarly, we see karma kandis. They also have an information, like if you do this ritual, you'll go back to, you'll go to Swarga, you'll go to this loka. You do these rituals and you'll be able to enjoy. So they may have this information of this thing, that we are not these bodies. And similarly, outside of Vedic culture, we have Buddhists, Jains, all of these. They also understand that they are not this body. They take birth again and again. So just by this knowledge, they will not become knowledge. What knowledge is required to know, to become a devotee? That Krishna is supreme. Krishna, we are eternal servants of Krishna, and by serving Krishna, we will go back to Him. So this knowledge is required, and due to absence of this knowledge only, even though there were, Bhagavad Gita, everyone before Prabhupada he wrote a commentary, there were many editions of Bhagavad Gita available in the market. So, but there was no one surrendering to Krishna, surrendering his life, his words, dedicating to Krishna, because this knowledge was covered, or it was not even given to the people that Krishna is supreme. You have to surrender to Krishna. So even though there were many editions, there was not even a single edition. When Prabhupada went to the West, there were already so many editions of Bhagavad Gita written by some scholars, written by some quote unquote yogi. All of these books were there, but there was no Bhagavad Gita as it is meant to be understood. So we understand from the editions which are available, even though they might have some sort of bhakti in it, if we see surrendering to Krishna, serving Lord Krishna feet, but it is mixed with various kinds of faulty ideas. Just as bhakti is just temporary. You do bhakti until you develop detachment, until you develop higher knowledge, until you become one with Lord. But just bhakti is just a step. They say bhakti is just like a ladder, and at the end you just give up the ladder and you become one with the Lord. So these kinds of faulty ideas, that one is one with God, bhakti is just temporary, and due to this they were not able to develop the devotional attitude toward Lord Krishna fully. And sometimes, not sometimes, scholars mostly, they misinterpret Bhagavad Gita. They would say on commentary on Bhagavad Gita, just like they would try to deviate the meaning from actual fact. Some interpretation is required when something is not clear. But when Krishna says, Man mana bhav mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskaru, Krishna says, become my devotee, offer obeisances unto me, worship me, then interpretation is not required, because it's directly clear. Krishna is saying to me. But what do the scholars do? What does the interpretation do? They say it's not that Krishna whom you have to worship. It's something within Krishna, something impersonal, unborn, that you have to worship. It's not Krishna. So we can understand this is cheating. This is not how you understand Bhagavad Gita. And due to this only, people, they were, even though they were reading Bhagavad Gita, but they were not, getting the essence of Bhagavad Gita. They were not developing the surrendering attitude to Krishna, which is Krishna demanding throughout the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Mai sarvani karmani, mai sannyasa adhyatma chetsa, nirmamo nirashi nirmamo bhutva yuddhasva vigajjora. Krishna is saying, surrender all results to me, do it Murphy, get up, fight Arjuna. Through Arjuna he is instructing us. Throughout Bhagavad Gita he is telling, do things for yajjuosi, yadar asnashi, dadasi. Whatever you do it for me. Whatever you give it to me. And by doing this, you will come back to me. So we understand, like Krishna is trying to induce soul to surrender, because this is the soul's natural interests. Krishna, whatever is speaking, it is for the benefit of the soul. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Arjuna, I am speaking for you for this, for your benefit. Vakshishami te hitam. I am speaking you so that you be benefited. So Krishna, out of his natural concern, out of his parental concern for the soul, is instructing him with the knowledge so that the jiva, the conditioned soul, it doesn't suffer and it comes back to him, and in its natural position he can eternally be with Krishna on his planet. But all this information is not available because this pure teachings of Bhagavad Gita, it is somewhere hidden in the commentaries. The pure message is lost, and especially due to Mayavad. This Mayavad means monoism. The soul and absolute truth is one. There is just one. Monoism means there is one thing, there is no separate identity. Everything is one. So due to this faulty doctrine, many are misled. Even if we see in today's times, this kind of philosophy is present in people in general, that we are all one, everything is one. But this is not true, because if we understand Krishna's opulences from the Bhagavad Gita, it mentions like how great is Krishna. Krishna's greatness, it cannot be measured. Krishna, so many times he compares like everything is resting on him, Krishna, and whatever the best of the things are, just like he says, I am of the radiance, I am the sun. When Krishna is telling whatever beautiful thing, whatever excellent thing we can find in this world, it is just emanating from him. And he says, and everything, when in the end of 10th chapter he says, just like I'll quote Bhagavad Gita, Athava bahuyetena kim gyatena tav arjuna vishtabhyam aham idam krishnam eka amshena sthito jagat. Krishna says, but what is their need, Arjuna, for all of this knowledge about his opulence? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. So Krishna is saying, my opulences are so vast, so expansive, I cannot tell you all of my opulence. But after that, describing his opulence in principal opulences in some degree, he says, what is the need of all this knowledge? Just understand that just with a single fragment of myself, I support this entire universe. Eko amshena sthito jagat. We understand, super soul, it's an ansh of Krishna. So by that, Krishna is supporting everything. If we understand these opulences about Krishna, then we will not be misled by this doctrines such as monoism. Everything is one. How can everything be one? Are you do you have these opulences? Show me. It's just like a poor person. He's saying, I am a billionaire. And then we ask him, show something, show your billionaire, exhibit your potency, of being a billionaire. But they say, if we ask those people following the monism doctrine, no, now we are not equal. But when we will get liberated, then we will become equal. So this is just cheating. Someone is saying, I am a billionaire. He should show his bank balance, his bank account. He should just show. But they are saying, no, I will show you later. When who knows? Like, how can he show later? If you are equal, you should be able to exhibit your potency now. But due to all these faulty ideas of monoism, Mayavad, one's bhakti is completely destroyed. So we understand from Bhagavad Gita, like who can really understand Krishna. So there is a mention in the starting of in the chapter 9, like Anusuyava, who is non-envious of Krishna. So if we understand this word of envy, you don't feel envy with a person who is lower than you. You always envy someone who is higher than you. And if we understand in this way, Krishna, he has so much of opulences. He is the highest, he is the greatest, and that's why people, they envy him. And due to this reason only, if one is envious of Krishna, one will not be able to understand Bhagavad Gita. And if we understand this point more deeply, all the scholars who are writing commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, who who deride the character of Krishna without knowing him, they cannot ever give a proper interpretation to Bhagavad Gita, because their approach is wrong. Whatever Krishna is saying, they are doing the opposite. They are not following Bhagavad Gita. So how can they really tell what is Bhagavad Gita aimed at, what is it's directing towards? And similarly, if we understand this word Anusuya, the non-envious, the impersonalists and Mayavadis, they also fall in this category, because they have this mistaken idea that impersonal form of God is greater than personal form of God. But if you see, if God is impersonal, then why would you envy God? Because God has no opulences, no beauty, no knowledge, no characters. So whom you will envy? But if we understand this, this people, they are envious. So envious means who has something which you don't have. So Krishna, he has everything what Jiva wants. Krishna has in full capacity. So that's why every Jiva in this material world is envious of Krishna. But when he gives up this envious attitude and he surrenders to Krishna, he gradually realizes a constitutional position by serving Krishna, and he finds that in his natural constitutional position he is much more happy than envying Krishna and trying to be the overlord of the universe. So similarly, if we there is a verse in Bhagavad Gita like Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. The Bhagavad Gita says to always talk about Krishna. Kirtan means chanting, glorification. So their glorification and chanting about whom? About Krishna. If something which has character, we can glorify them. When something is impersonal, there is no variety, then how can we glorify that thing? We cannot glorify that. So that's why it says glorification should Satatam Kirtanayantama, means we should talk about Krishna, not some impersonal thing. So that's why it's mentioned. And if we see throughout Bhagavad Gita, this impersonal idea, it's not like this impersonal conception is wrong. Impersonal conception is there, but it is subordinate to Krishna. Krishna says this Brahm Jyoti, it's resting upon me. It's actually nothing but Krishna's bodily effulgence, and it's not like this is Krishna bodily effulgence, and Krishna, and it is coming from Krishna. It is not that Krishna is subordinate or Krishna has taken a material form. So all of these are wrong ideas which impede our advancement in devotional service. If we understand, in the starting of 10th chapter, Prabhupada writes in the first verse, the more one hears about the Supreme God, the more one becomes fixed in devotional service. And one more important thing here to note is like Krishna, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's not just like Krishna is one of the gods or one of the many gods. Krishna is just one of them. We have to understand Krishna is supreme. If one is not convinced about it, then he will. Then naturally question will arise. What about this personality? What about that personalities? Why one should follow Krishna? We have I can follow this. This demigod. I can follow this thing. But we have to understand Krishna, he is supreme, and one must be convinced about this fact by reading Bhagavad Gita, by understanding. He says he is the goal of all Veda. He is all the Vedas. He says, Mata Simriti Jnanam Apanam Cha Mata Simriti Vedasya Cha Sarva Aham Eva Vedya Vedanta Krishna Vedvicha Aham. By Vedas, I am to be known. So beside Veda, you show us what is there. Beside Veda, there is nothing. So beside Vedas, there are no other personalities. And Krishna says, like, by Vedas, I am to be known. I am to be understood. So we can understand, like, the supremacy of Krishna. It's meant to direct us towards his lotus feet, so that we surrender to him. So similarly, we should hear more about the Supreme God, so that one becomes more fixed in devotional service. And if we understand, if we go out, if we speak to people, generally they have tendency in following science. They say, I follow science. I am an atheist. I don't believe all of this stuff. So because they know the glories of modern science. Modern science has achieved so many things. They invented bulb, refrigerator, aeroplanes, computers, integrated circuits. All of these things, They just know about these things, the glories of these things. That's why they have this faith towards modern science, in the modern scientific methodology. And similarly, materialists, when they associate with materialists, they have faith in materialism. Like, okay, you advance, you grow, you get more money, you somehow you just be materially opulent, don't care about spirituality. So these kinds of discussion, they help us to become more faith in modern science or more faith in materialism. So similarly, we should understand, like, when we hear, and by the way, this faith in modern science, it's not really helpful at all, because modern science has given a lot of amenities to us, but it doesn't mean that it can guide us toward higher truths in life, because the methodology of modern science, it's limited. We are limited by our senses. Just like our vision is imperfect, we cannot see any object without the presence of any luminous or light source. So due to this, we cannot know the truth. Just like there is analogies given, there are 5 blind men and the elephant. Blind men, they are touching the elephant at different parts and trying to figure out what the thing is. Similarly, with our limited senses, we are trying to observe what this universe is, where did it come from, what is the purpose of this. But actually, just like the blind, those blind men who are examining the elephant, and but they are not able to get to the proper conclusion. Someone is touching the tail and thinking it's a broom. Someone is touching the trunk thinking it's a snake. Someone is touching the leg thinking it's a trunk of a tree. So similarly, our approach to understand the truth through these scientific methodology, it's also something similar to that, because we have limited senses, and with limited senses, we cannot really know what's the truth, what's the higher goal in life. So that's why we should not have we should not think this methodology to be perfect source of information. So we should understand from Bhagavad Gita how we can be really happy, and how this world is made, and who made this world, who are we. And by reading Bhagavad Gita, by constantly reading Bhagavad Gita, our heart becomes pure. Because God is the Param Pavitram, the purest thing, and for understanding the purest thing, you have to become pure. Otherwise, people, they are trying to philosophers, they are trying to debate whether God exists, whether God doesn't exist. But this is not the methodology to understand God. The process of understanding God is given in Bhagavad Gita, and we must take it, and gradually everyone can realize this. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, this is pratyaksh avagamam. This is directly you can perceive the result, how much you are progressing in spiritual life. So this is the way of understanding God through Bhagavad Gita. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Any questions? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhagavad Gita ki jai.